Welcome everyone to today's webinar. So nice to see so many people in the session, and I'm sure that more will be joining as we start up things. My name is Sam Jenks. I'm going to be your host for today for the webinar surrounding the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, the effects on your supply chain, and exactly how you should be acting. I'm going to now turn off my camera so we can focus on the day's content. But nice of you all to join during today's session. Getting into the content, like I've said, my name is Sam Jenks. I'm the Chief Growth Officer at Kodiak Hub, and I will be your host for today's webinar. In addition, though, I am joined today by Richard Teuchler, who's been instrumental in building today's content, and he will definitely be aiding me in the background and not only answer your questions, but also to issue some very important polls. So make sure to keep your voting fingers ready. Lastly, we will be joined, as I often am, by my third co-host, Charlie, the office dog. Today, very much the apartment dog, as I'm working from home. So if you hear a bark in the background, it's just Charlie adding his point of view to the day's content, or I'm getting some mail through the slot. He can be rather opinionated, so I apologize if I have to pause for his opinions, so to say. Short about Kodiak Hub, for those of you who don't know about us, Kodiak is a cloud-based supplier management suite and provider of solutions within the supplier relationship management space. We're helping procurement and sourcing professionals, just like many of you, to be able to build smarter and more sustainable relationships with your suppliers, building deeper insights in the form of robust ratings and analytics. We provide an ecosystem, and it's a modular suite that our users can be able to plug and play to manage supplier information, risk, compliance, performance, sustainability, and collaboration, all from one place. And during the course of today's webinar, you will, of course, all become more acquainted in a more thorough context with Kodiak Hub solution, and you'll better understand how we can be able to possibly help you guys take action and remain ahead of the curve to address new requirements on supply chain due diligence and corporate sustainability reporting that just about everybody's living within as the new reality in the EU with the launch of the CSRD legislation. During the next 30 to 40 minutes, I will thoroughly cover the following points, or try to thoroughly cover the following points, starting with what exactly does this legislation mean, really? What will it entail? What will it entail out as well for your business, and what will the potential impact be? Following the trends, we're going to look into quickly the German Supply Chain Act and also how this has then potentially landed in additional legislation in the EU. What can your procurement team do to act? And also how will this legislation actually benefit your business is where we're going to also focus in. Finally, we're going to land into a demo of Kodiak Hub solution. Some of you in the session, of course, have already seen demonstration of the solution. For those that haven't, we're going to give a little bit of a snapshot of how our solution can be able to help everyone transition into the new normal and enhance corporate sustainability due diligence in the supply chain. And finally, we're going to finish off things with a question and answer session. And if you guys have any questions during the day's content, like I've mentioned in the chat bubble, feel free to put down those questions and we will circle back to them during the Q&A. Without any further ado, let's get into the day's content. About 1 year ago today, it would be about a year and a week or two, on the 23rd of February 2022, the European Commission kickstarted a new era of due diligence when it published its proposal for the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive, which we all now know as the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. The proposal was part of the EU's effort to achieve the goals set out in the Paris Agreement and the recent European Green Deal. And the main elements of this EU due diligence directive concerns, of course, human rights and environmental provisions, which we'll dig deeper into what that means for your business today. As the sustainability megatrend continues to land very concretely in enhanced corporate environmental and social governance, this legislative proposal by the EU doesn't really come as much of a shocker, or at least it's not shocking for me. And my guess is that it's not much of a shock for those of you in attendance today. The CSRD, or Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, is an EU ESG, or environmental social governance, for those that don't know, standard that has gone from proposal to reality during the last year. And it's been adopted officially by the European Parliament back in November of 2022, passed with an overwhelming majority of 525 to 60 votes. So there was not many naysayers within the European Parliament to pass this through, and for good reason. The CSRD will now update and also replace the existing NFRD, which is the Non-Financial Reporting Directive. Some of those in attendance probably have a good idea of what that is, or already currently having to report based upon the NFRD. The CSRD will now replace that particular legislation. And on the 5th of January 2023, the CSRD legislation, of course, has now entered into force. As put by the European Commission themselves, the transformation to a sustainable economy is a key political priority within the EU, and it's essential for the well-being of our society and our planet. Companies, you all in attendance, play a key role in that, creating a sustainable and a fair economy, a society that really has a clear framework and support surrounding corporate sustainability due diligence. And this will advance the green transition, protect human rights within not only Europe, but also hopefully beyond. You know what this is really is a call to action. This is the EU asking you and your businesses to set the new standard for sustainable and responsible business practices. The EU Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive will increase accountability for corporate leaders, and that's the mission by the EU. By 2025, it will be enforced for large companies. And by 2025, I mean fiscal year reporting from 2024. So the reporting will need to start as of the beginning of next year, whereas then the requirement for reporting will be there for 2025 for large companies, and then for 2027 of fiscal year 2026 for small and medium-sized businesses in high-risk sectors or listed businesses. And this is going to create, real challenges in some businesses, and other businesses it will create competitive edge, right? We're soon going to revisit as well what the exact definition of large and medium-sized companies are in the definition of the legislation, so you know exactly which category your company might fall into. But you might be wondering, what will it require of you? What will be the new duty of care? And it really includes 7 main objectives. There's more objectives, of course, but some of the objectives that this new EU CSRD legislation will require is seen on screen here. The integration of more due diligence policies, identifying the adverse aspects related to human rights and environmental impacts, all the way through to more publicly communicating due diligence. This is really, in a nutshell, this legislation aims to enforce more responsible business practices at scale, to prevent, to identify as well, and then also to mitigate adverse human rights and environmental impacts in a company's own operations, in its subsidiaries, and in their value chains. CSRD reports will need to include management commentary and data on a company's corporate ESG governance, environmental protection policies and actions, company sustainability policies, social responsibility and treatment of employees, respect for human rights, anti-corruption and bribery practices, and so much more. If you guys aren't catching what I'm saying, that's totally fine. For exact requirements of information or disclosure, you can feel free to contact our team to learn more about this. But this is all also publicly available information via now the EU legislation, which I would urge everyone, if you haven't had the opportunity to go out and really learn more about. I mean, simply the far reach of this legislation means that supply chain and corporate due diligence will pose a great and a newly revived importance within businesses globally. So the question really bears itself: why now, right? Why is this so important right at this moment? Well, voluntary action by corporate entities has unfortunately proved to be insufficient. which proves really for a legislative need for action. From a 2020 study conducted by the EU on due diligence requirements throughout the supply chain, it was found that only 1/3 of corporate respondents from companies across industry sectors actively worked with identifying, mitigating, and following up on human rights and environmental impacts. Not so good. That means that 2/3 were not doing so in a proper way. While this is, of course, a positive sign, it certainly wasn't an overwhelming majority, right? And governance typically only extended in most cases to tier 1 suppliers, and the pace of initiative rollouts had proven really just to be too slow and inconsistent across organizations to create any type of real impact, as seen by the EU. So now you got an idea of what this new legislation proposal is all about, and also then what it is why is it that it's important to your business. But will it affect your business? That's the next big question. Well, simply put, probably so. The CSRD will apply to all large EU companies, that is EU companies, including EU subsidiaries of non-EU parent companies, exceeding at least 2 of the following criteria: that you have more than 250 employees, a turnover of more than 400 million euro, or total assets of 200 million euro or more. The new Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive makes a distinction between 2 types of companies that it will affect, broken down into 2 main groups: large and then small medium enterprises. Large being EU incorporated limited liability companies that have at least 500 employees and a net turnover of 150 million euro worldwide. Some of these businesses that some of you guys might be sitting in today also might already fall underneath the current non-financial reporting directive, but that will now again be replaced with the CSRD. Group 2, other smaller limited liability companies operating in resource-intensive industries with over 250 employees and a net turnover of more than 400 million euro worldwide. More granularly speaking, this legislation will take effect in 4 main phases on 4 segments or typifications of businesses, 4 more kind of granular groups. And here we can see those. Group number 1, this is companies that, like I said, may already be subject to the NFRD, that might be reporting, that will actually need to begin reporting in 2025 on their financial year from 2024. This is then large businesses, so over 150 million in euro in revenue, as well as 500 employees. Group 2 being large companies that are also then not currently subject to the NFRD, that will then need to be reporting by 2026 from their financial year of 2025. The third phase being the reporting that is in 2027 from the financial year of 2026 of small medium enterprises. And you see here it is then small and non-complex credit institutions and captive insurance undertakings. This is also then listed SMEs, right? The fourth section being international companies with a net turnover of above 150 million in the EU who meet the CSRD requirements. They must begin reporting by 2029 on their financial year from 2028. So there's quite a few rollouts of phases of this going out during the next few years, but to stay ahead of it, of course, and especially if you're the first 2 sections, then you need to start taking action very soon. You might be thinking, well, this might not be my HQ, but I'm curious in understanding, first and foremost, let's pause for a poll here and understand which group does your business fall under. Richard, if you could be so kind to just quickly go ahead and launch today's first poll, which is on screen now. Please take the time to be able to answer on this particular poll. Are you falling into Group 1, a large business that's currently already reporting into the NFRD, a large business that's not currently reporting into the NFRD, a listed SME, or are you working within an international company that has a turnover that will signify you guys to be a large business that will then have to report in the EU, even though the headquarters is not located within the EU? Seems like there's a pretty even spread within our attendees today. Go ahead and respond on screen now to the poll if you haven't done so already. Pretty even spread. It seems like there's quite a few people working in large businesses today. some listed SMEs, but the majority of people that have responded, it seems that almost everybody falls underneath one of the groupings. So hopefully we'll be able to show you something in which we can help you out to be able to report better within this new requirements due to the EU legislation. You might be thinking, well, my HQ isn't in the EU. This isn't about me. Think again. If you're not headquartered in the EU or your headquarters is in a non-EU country, as stated, if you work within an international business that simply operates in the EU, hosting a net turnover over 150 million, you too will be under this EU law with a requirement to report by 2029 from a 2028 fiscal year as well. And if you operate as well within a small, medium-sized enterprise, you will not be affected directly by this new proposal if your business is not listed. However, this new law is a part of a trend of things to come, and therefore it's pretty important to keep an eye on the evolution of environmental and human rights requirements that will be put upon you by your customers, even if you operate as an SME or have suppliers that are simply SMEs. As we talk a lot about at Kodiak Hub, very often, corporate sustainability, responsibility, it's important that you guys have your suppliers and your supplier base on your side, and engagement is incredibly important to that. You will be super reliant upon the engagement and reporting from your value chain to ensure that you're going to be able to meet the new CSRD requirements. And to do so, you need to ensure that you're focusing also not only on your own business's capabilities for reporting, but your supply chain's capabilities for reporting and enhancing the supplier experience. A good way to be able to do that, we're going to give you some concrete tips, but a good way to do that to start is to keep the four R's in mind here. The four R's that we talk about quite a bit at Kodiak Hub are an awesome way to be able to ensure that you're going to ramp up supplier engagement. That's rationale. Making sure that you know which of your suppliers are in scope, and also that your suppliers also know the importance of your due diligence activities, that you're communicating the importance to them. Relevancy, right? That you keep criteria relevant to the supplier based upon their category or their geography or their type or their spend volume, right? Responsiveness, that you make sure that you have a means to not only be able to engage with the supplier for DD activities, but also to respond to suppliers and keep a dialogue going. Recognition, right? Also making sure that you're highlighting when a supplier is doing a good job and rewarding them for it as well. And that's part of what this is all about, is not only ensuring that you have a better means to be able to report, but also to start finding avenues of supply that are in fact more sustainable and more responsible for your business moving forward. The EU themselves have certainly taken relevancy and rationality into account with the proposed or with this new legislation that has been now launched. And there are two primary elements that are protecting SMEs from any type of excessive scrutiny or unnecessary requirements, which are including the following: the provision of guidance and other tools to help gradually integrate sustainability considerations in business operations, and also ensuring that member states shall provide further technical support and may provide financial support to SMEs to facilitate adaptation. So if you fall into a list of an SME that also might not be listed, then maybe it's good for you guys to be able to start looking into this. Also then to kind of maybe empower your suppliers to look into these things as well, as they're going to be scrutinized in a totally different way by your businesses to meet these new requirements. As I think we can all agree upon, this is a new normal, right, that we're moving into. The fact is this: people want to do business with businesses that care about people, the planet, and how their profit is made. That's the new reality that we're living in. The broadened requirements that come with this legislation solidify the importance of responsible sourcing and procurement practices, but just generally responsible and sustainable business practices. This legislation, however, comes as no real shocker, and I don't think that anyone is so shocked about it. If we just look at some of the recently passed legislation prior to the Supply Chain Due Diligence Law, the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Act, which was happening back in 2023, or I'm sorry, back in 2021, and now took effect in 2023, Lieferkettenschutzgesetz, please excuse my German there. In English, it's known as the Supply Chain Act, is a German law that was passed in February of 2021, a year prior to the time in which the EU CSRD law was proposed. And during our trends webinar for back in 2022, we mentioned that we believe that the German Supply Chain Act was just a drop in the sea of coming legislation. And we've now seen multiple bundles of legislation coming afterwards. And we think that this will just continue as well. And the EU is the first, kind of massive state to be able to adopt this. But I think that we can see the same trends that will follow within North America as well. The previous passing of this German Supply Chain Act makes the passing of the EU CSRD legislation far less shocking, really. The German Supply Chain Act, much like the proposed EU Act, aims to enforce sustainable business practices within broader value chains of large German organizations. The legal requirements of this act force companies to take responsibility for their global supply chains and enhance due diligence, corporate governance, and also to have a means for not only reporting violations, but also to follow up on those violations within social, environmental, and financial criteria. This Supply Chain Act came into the force at the beginning of 2023 this year. In fact, already for businesses with at least 3,000 employees. Global organizations with complex supply chains are therefore, of course, the most affected. And from 2024, companies with more than 1,000 employees will also be affected by this particular Supply Chain Act in Germany. The EU Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, however, is even more all-encompassing than the German Supply Chain Act, both within its reporting requirements, but also that it's encompassing businesses that are just 1/4 the size of those that are impacted by the German Supply Chain Act. Shifting back to the EU CSRD legislation, what really happens if you don't comply? Well, if companies fail to comply, they will be considered accountable for any adverse impact arising as a result of their activities. This is a broad area of accountability that will leave your business open to massive risks from various points, especially negative impact on brand and shareholder value. Victims that will also be empowered to bring civil liability claims against companies that fall short of these newly proposed laws. And this liability encompasses a company's own operations as well as those as its subsidiaries, suppliers, and established relationships, meaning that it's the entire value chain you need to have an eye on. Simply put, it's time to hop on board or really just hop the heck out of the way, because this new legislation is the new reality. Due diligence should be expected within your business, and it should be expected definitely within your supplier management and your supply chain management, as seen as an iterative process throughout the course of your buyer to supplier relationship. We know, right? Supplier due diligence is not sexy, but it is an essential building block for an open and innovative buyer and supplier partnership and building upon those partnerships over time. And now, let's face it, it doesn't matter how sexy it is or not, it's the law. So what exactly can your procurement, supply chain, quality, and sustainability teams do to prepare your business and be proactive to really implement the requirements of this legislation within your line management of the supply chain? Kodiak suggests a 6-step ladder, which I want to be able to walk everybody through, of how we believe that you guys can quickly address or kind of lay the groundwork to address corporate sustainability and supply chain due diligence, and also to address some of the requirements of the CSRD legislation. Starting with number 1, you need to understand the legislation. You need to make sure that you have in-house competency or bring in external experts to identify where actions need to be taken in your business and how your company will also uniquely be impacted, right? Don't rely just on me telling you which groupings are going to be affected at which point in times or the high-level requirements on your business. It's better that you guys take in experts that are going to be able to guide you in this, right? And if you don't take in expertise, then ensure that you have some type of ability to be able to quickly find those requirements that are going to be upon your business. Number 2, align the stakeholders in your team. Make sure that your procurement and sourcing teams are on board with this, right? You're going to need to likely work with expanding the team competency, shifting culture, and ultimately possibly, eliminating the unsustainable buying practices that are in your organization currently today. Step 3, flag for your supply chain. I mean, you need to clearly communicate to your suppliers that this legislation is a requirement, and it's going to create, a need for enhanced reporting and due diligence to ensure the proper measurement, of social and environmental impact. So you need to aim really to inspire, entice them via your supply chain, and also entice them to rally the further tiers of your supply chain of the importance of this as well. Because again, it's now the law. Step 4, adopt technology for systematic DD. Adopting modern supplier management or internal reporting solutions to segment suppliers, align on ESG KPIs, identify risks either in your businesses or in your supply chains to assess your business or your suppliers, measure, benchmark, and report on social and environmental supply chain due diligence is key for creating real material impact fast. Step 5, you need to engage your supply chain. You need to engage and re-engage your supply chain, right? Even if you previously trusted in your suppliers' published accreditations or shared accreditations, you need to go back out to them, unfortunately. But that's the simple fact, right? Technology can also ease this process to ensure that you're communicating, assessing, and following up or auditing your supply chains quicker, providing you also, though, with more measurable results, and that your suppliers will with a more engaging experience, which is really important in this as well, to ensure that they're not getting fatigued. Last step, got to manage change. You have to work with the change management within the buying culture. This legislation shows the importance to start now with shifting your priorities and your buying culture. Sustainable procurement practices will just continue to become the status quo. And investing in the right people and culture will be equally as important as adoption of new technologies to scale due diligence within your businesses, right? The embryo to change starts with your team mindset, starts with a culture shift as well. I want to pause here for a poll and just ask, as I'm sure that many of you guys are trying a lot of these things, but you might be running into some hurdles. If you were to answer on the question here, which of the 4 areas do you see as your biggest current hurdle for improving upon corporate sustainability, due diligence, and reporting currently today? Do you find it to be the team competency? Is it your technology and your intelligence that's hindering you? Is it your supply chain engagement? Your suppliers are factored and not engaged? Or is it the buying culture within your organization? We're curious, what is your biggest hurdle to improve upon corporate sustainability reporting and due diligence within the value chain? Go ahead and take a moment to answer on screen now. Seems like it's a pretty mixed crowd, but the majority of attendees are identifying that technology and intelligence are lagging, as well as then the engagement from the supply chain, with team and competency coming up as a close third as well. It's nice to see that most teams believe in their buying culture, right? So hopefully we could be able to help you address some of the other things such as technology and intelligence, and also how that can also in turn create a better supply chain or supplier experience, and ultimately enhance the overall supply chain engagement that you guys have as well. Let me shift back over here and share my screen again. To provide some concrete examples of how Kodiak has helped clients just like you that are in attendance to become more proactive and save time on corporate sustainability and supply chain due diligence, we'd like to take this opportunity to dive into a recent case study. Our amazing customer, HL Display, has seen massive benefits from adopting the Kodiak Hub solution, streamlining corporate sustainability due diligence as well as the reporting, and enhancing their supply chain compliance. For those who don't know about HL Display, brief about them. They help retailers and brands around the world to create attractive and profitable in-store environments that strengthen the consumer shopping experience. HL Display is working today in Sweden, Poland, China, UK, combined with sales units across more than 20 countries. So if you're in need for retail experiences, then absolutely they could be a good option for you guys as well. The challenge that they faced themselves was a pretty normal one, right? HL Display wanted to save time on supply chain due diligence, risk assessment, and overall compliance of the supplier base, right? The group purchasing team recognized that the supply chain due diligence was a pillar really to their sustainability goals. They had close to 1,000 suppliers, and much of their supplier data was localized in a distributed ERP landscape or on individuals' computers, SharePoints, spreadsheets, notes, and emails. HL Display was simply having a hard time leveraging their supplier data in the most efficient way, right? Information was scattered, and the SRM processes required really heavy manual work, which meant that supplier due diligence on the entire supply chain sometimes took as long as 8 to 10 months to gain complete clarity. So by the time that they were ready to report, it was time to start the process all over again. And I'm sure that some of you guys might recognize this pain point, right? HL Display adversely adopted Kodiak Hub's SRM solution to centralize, onboard, and collect supplier data, getting HL Display out of their localized solutions and siloed solutions into a consolidated platform, giving the team more access, visibility, transparency in order to evaluate and empiric set a true set of supplier data and information, right? Building a new set of truth. HL Display leveraged Kodiak solutions for self-assessment, onboarding, auditing, as well as being able to build different types of dynamic templates to really combine not only our best practices that we have in our global library for international and industry best practices, but also things specific to their business to make sure that they weren't just meeting legal, but also business critical requirements, and they were being covered within their DD activities as well. HL Display, as a result, went from working 8 to 10 months to create, send out, gather, and report on their supplier sustainability and due diligence within the supply chain to 3 weeks from start to finish. Through the application of better supplier management software, the team also managed to meet their goals of 90% supplier code of conduct compliance, and thus they met some of those really crucial goals that they had set out for themselves at the beginning of the project. Simply, they were able to take their supplier DD from manual to magnificent, saving a rather significant amount of time within the process. With that, we would be interested in understanding how exactly are you today managing supply chain due diligence? Are you still stuck in homegrown spreadsheets? Do you have a solution that you're working with today? Do you not have any technology in place? Take a moment to simply just answer on the day's poll. What do you have in place? Are you currently utilizing homegrown solutions? Do you use, a mix of Excel, spreadsheets, mail, and alike? Are you filling the gaps with solutions? Do you have a solution that is alike us? Or are you using an all-in-one kind of end-to-end S2P-like solution? A SAP, a Coupa, an Oracle, a Jagger? Please take the time to answer now how you yourself are addressing these particular aspects. Seems as if most people are filling the gaps, which is nothing to be ashamed with, using spreadsheets, emails, Word, documents, shares, and alike. And this we see quite often. So nothing to be ashamed about, only a great opportunity for you guys to maybe enhance your way of working. But we also know that that's an element that's tied to culture and tied to the ability to be able to adopt new solutions as well. But hopefully we could be able to provide you with a view of some alternatives, but also inspire you as to how you can be able to sell this in further in your organization. And as a part of that, beyond the presented case study, we wanted to hit you with some more sound rhetoric, right? Relaying also what the EU Commission themselves has really defined as some of the greatest benefits for companies that are looking to beef up their corporate sustainability due diligence. Starting with number one, preventing legal fragmentation. Some EU countries have developed national rules or want to do this, but the scope of these measures varies a lot from country to country. The application of the legislation will really align legal coverage across the EU, which is really nice to have that alignment across the EU. Number two, meeting consumer growing demands. I mean, your consumers are demanding this, right? As we see from this 2021 stat from PwC Consumer Intelligence Survey, 83% of global consumer respondents indicated that they believe companies should be shaping ESG best practices. That means that this is an opportunity for competitive edge. And don't forget it, right? It's not just an opportunity for reporting. This isn't just a nice to have anymore. It's going to be able to create business, top line value. Number three, meeting investors' growing demands. I mean, investors' prompt transparency requirements. Without any type of mandatory action, investors and consumers would miss consistent benchmarks to be assured about the value chain standards. And, investors are looking for this as a new standard. Also becoming an attractive employer. This is super important. It was reported in the same PwC consumer survey that 86% of employees care to work for a company that cares about the same issues that they do, which means that enhanced work with corporate sustainability due diligence and reporting could attract and also retain talent. It's super important, not only for that ability to be able to create new lines of revenue, but also to attract new and exciting talent, but also to retain talent as well. Number five, reinforcing risk management and sustainability, practices. Thanks to new rules, companies will have a clearer view of their operations and supply chain, which will also include a higher awareness of the potential negative impacts that can be had within the supply chain as well, right? Number six, greater economic benefits, right? We've talked about it. Consumers are demanding it, but legitimately, more focus on ESG can also be able to boost your profit margins. According to a 2020 survey from Accenture, it was found that companies with higher ratings for ESG boasted significantly higher profit margins. That's just hard facts. The last bit being that, of course, in a world post-COVID, it's that buzzword resilience, right? Visibility. Researchers found that companies which had integrated social, environmental, and health considerations into their strategies really weathered the recent disruptions in the supply chain, caused by whether it's COVID or the downturns in the market, much better than those that did not have those things in place as well, because they were more prepared simply. Again, technology can serve as a means to enhance supply chain due diligence and corporate sustainability reporting to help you to save time while doing so. But we want to remind you, even as a vendor of technology, that this is just one piece of the puzzle. People and culture will play a pivotal role in implementing proper actions set out in the EU CSRD legislation. And in the spirit of not just talking about it, but also being about it, I would like to now switch over my screen to a brief demonstration of the Kodiak Hub solution to also kind of display how modern supplier management tooling can aid in alignment, in centralization, streamlining, reporting upon different types of corporate sustainability and supply chain due diligence areas and criteria, to also help you guys to create some time savings. I'm just going to give a quick glimpse of the solution. So what I would also like to do is ask our last poll of the day prior to switching over my screen, if you would like a deeper demonstration of the Kodiak Hub solution to also understand maybe how we could help you guys to meet some of the CSRD requirements, especially within supply chain due diligence and reporting, please answer on screen now. If so, yes, then please answer yes. If no, then please say not right now. That's totally fine. And if you say yes, then we will be following up with you after the event with a link to one of our reps' calendars, where you'll be able to find some time that suits you for a demonstration of the platform. So if you say yes, like I said, we'll be getting in touch with you following the session so you guys can be able to book in a demonstration as well. Let me just quickly switch over my screen here. Please take the time to answer in the poll if you haven't done so already, as I switch over my screen. So welcome into the Kodiak Hub solution. Like I said, I'm not going to spend all that much time in the solution. What I'm going to do is highlight a few areas where we could be able to help your business to measure, but also to indicate and spot potential risks or opportunities related to corporate sustainability reporting within your supply chain, but also in your business. Our solution is an SRM solution, as you understand. Underneath the insights section of our solution, you can be able to gain more insights about your suppliers. You can manage and manipulate supplier data, as you see on screen here. You can be able to add new suppliers. You can be able to import data, export data, have a direct API integration to your master data or ERP solution as well to push and pull that data in and out. You can quickly be able to find supplier groupings here based upon their rating profiles, based upon their risk profiles as well. And this can also then be driven by the things that are predefined kind of criteria by your business, again, related to, for example, things that are legal requirements, but also business critical requirements that you might have. Within the impact section, this is where you can be able to build up your assessments, your audits, your performance evaluations, but also to manage collaboration in the action portal. Your templates can be defined based upon whether those are really high level and, really kind of generic templates for example, onboarding or RFIs, but also things that could be really niche based upon, for example, a particular type of reporting like CSRD, or to a particular category or a particular segment of suppliers. Within campaigns, you can define the suppliers that you are in fact sending out to. You can be able to enroll suppliers within those different campaigns to report back. Here all along the way, you have different results that are showing you are suppliers responding back or not. And the reports is where you're going to be able to get a quick overview of your suppliers' responses. It will flag up where suppliers are maybe not meeting your requirements, for example, who those suppliers are. You can also be able to see quick views of those data points, but also at any point in time, you can dive deeper into individual supplier scorecards as well. These supplier scorecards provide real control centers for suppliers where you can be able to dig deeper into data, documentation, communication, but also insights surrounding the supplier, whether they're third-party data or data driven by the responses that are coming back in from suppliers on activities, for example, like corporate sustainability reporting. And here you're able to dig deeper into those different insights to better understand how is a supplier doing within the different areas that are most important to our reporting. Here you can be able to ask the questions that you need that are important for example, legislative requirements or just things that you're trying to be able to dig deeper into for as business critical risk. And as you see, you can define what are the individual criteria underneath these sections that are leading into the rating profiles. The beauty is that the ratings help you guys to be able to spot risks and opportunities faster, but also to see value progression over time. Is a supplier in fact getting better or are they getting worse within individual areas? And you can be able to follow up those things with suppliers as well in the solution as well within the action space. There's plenty of capabilities in this solution, like note taking to be able to keep people up to date on what it is that's going on. As you see here, you can be able to see different types of activities that have been left for you or by someone else in the business. Further down, you can see previous self-assessments, audit reports, or performance evaluations. So you can quickly pull forward those and dive into those reports in the scorecard as well. As you see, there's also third-party results on the right-hand side, financials, adverse media, as well as sanctions of politically exposed persons. But what you also have here is centralized communication, which allows you to quickly find any type of corrective or collaborative actions that you have ongoing with this particular supplier. So you're not just able to report on corporate sustainability, but you're also able to address when there is necessity for corrective action for the sustainability activity activities. And this is actually a part of that requirement as well, is not just being able to report, but also having the tools in place to be able to mark nonconformities, to manage corrective actions and alike as well, and audit those things. And the last bit is then documentation. As you see further down, when documents are shared with you by suppliers, you can be able to quickly find those documents based upon their typifications, which you can uniquely, typify as a customer. They're categorized, they're typified, they're marked with expiry dates, so you guys can quickly be able to find and locate those different activities within the solution as well, very quickly. I would love to demonstrate a whole lot more of the solution, the back end of things, right? How do you build up templates? What is the supplier's view? What is then the intelligence part of the solution look like, and the action space? But this is just a teaser. Feel free to reach out to our team, or again, answer on the poll that's still on screen now. If you've previously answered no, you can go back and answer yes after what you've seen during this demonstration. If you'd like a deeper demo of Kodiak Hub's platform, we're happy to provide you with one